Hello, hello, hello. It is 2:05 p.m., December 12th, 2025, and we are on day 12 of 365 for T is for Temidayo. Let's get started. Today, we are going to pump probably on our hamstrings. It's been a minute since we've done our hamstrings. Is the gel, backs of the thighs. Here we go. 1 and 2. And let that sit in while we chat. Done. That's all that done. And we're done. So, I wasn't looking forward to filming today. I don't know why. Probably because it's been so kind of everything, everywhere, all at once for the past couple of days. As you saw, Sunday, I was filming for my friend Ollie's house. Yesterday, I was filming for my friend Reed's house, and it was just like, okay, I would like to be back in my own house, please. I would like to be able to also take my time because Wednesday I was going to work, and so my timetable was like really truncated. All that being said, we have a little bit of time today, and it's just me and you back on the channel, so I'm excited about that. Okay, so a couple of the things that I've been thinking about since I last recorded was the schedule that I talked about in terms of still giving you stories about my personal life, my journey, in addition to like body check-ins, in addition to voice check-ins, in addition to doing like FAQs and Q&As, and then also reading through the TGL like instruction manual, whatever that is, terms and conditions, whatever came in the box itself. Just because I want to be able to also understand as much as I can from not only the people that I know in my life personally, but also the people that are online who have been doing this for 6 months to 60 years, and then also what it says like in the very medication that I'm taking, right? Like I want to get as much information as possible as we continue to venture into the unknown, because there is really like the most information that we are going to get as people who are taking testosterone is from like primary sources. There's not a shit ton of research on T right now. There's not really a shit ton of research on a lot when it comes to like medicine for trans people, gender affirming care, life affirming care in the form of medicine and surgery. We're just now getting information about like, the debunking the myth that people want to detransition. Like thankfully, there's been studies that have been like actually more people regret getting a nose job when they're, 16 than they regret like getting on puberty blockers or having top surgery or even having bottom surgery. So that's really awesome for us as a community. But I think in terms of getting real in-depth knowledge about like what you can expect, the most consistent place that we can find that is with each other, with word of mouth. And so I want to be able to kind of archive that as much as possible on this channel. That being said, we can check in about what happened yesterday, which was my impromptu conversation with Reed, which essentially starts our Q&A series. I was expecting to start that a little bit after we read through the instruction manual, but sometimes life happens and your plans start to build a mind of their own, which is cool. It was really nice to talk to Reed yesterday about their journey. Knowing that like they didn't have a moment when they were a kid, or maybe they that moment wasn't committed to memory because they were in a state of repression. And so like their TV glows moments happened so much later in their life. And yeah, that's really like reassuring to hear, to be reminded like everybody's timeline is going to be so different from one another. And I felt like mine was really early. I started thinking about what it means or what it meant at the time to be a girl, to be a woman, to be classified as female, like almost immediately. Culturally, religiously, right? Because those are like huge social spaces in the community that I grew up in. And I was talking to Reed and Reed's roommate about like, who's also trans, talking to Reed and Reed's roommate about like for me, there was no clear distinction from like where quote unquote culture and ethnicity ended and where like culture and religion began, because where I was taken to for religious practice was also deeply embedded in the cultural practice of, my ethnic group. So, that being said, let me give you a little bit of background about that. I am Yoruba Nigerian. I am first generation Yoruba Nigerian. My people come from Nigeria, the country. They come from the Yoruba lands of Benin and Ibadan and Lagos. And there might be others there, but that's as far back as I have gone at this time. And growing up, especially in Nigeria, and probably also in Benin, like there's a big mix of folks who are Christian, there's folks who are Muslim, there are folks who are practicing like indigenous religious practice and spiritual practice. There are folks who are, there's a little bit of everybody there, but I would say the three big ones are like folks who are still practicing like indigenous kind of variations of Ifa and yeah, what we would call like tribal religions, and then Islam and Christianity. And it just so happened that I was born into a family that was Muslim. And so we, every Sunday, as opposed to every Friday, would go to the masjid, and we would practice in community. And there's the other thing about that too, is that my entire congregation at the masjid were Nigerian people of Yoruba descent. So it was like we were literally in a Nigerian Muslim mosque. They were all together, they were all the same thing all of the time. And for me, like that is where the foundation of my relationship to spirituality was born. That is also where the foundational understanding of what it meant to be a woman, a girl, assigned female at birth was born as well. And like socialized female was born. It's nuts because thinking back to it, the question that Reed's roommate asked me was like what was your relationship to religion? And I'm like, there's no distinction between my relationship to religion and my relationship to culture at that time in my life because they were coming from the same place with the same people. And so looking back, thinking like, okay, was that socialization, that girlhood socialization coming from the fact that these were all Yoruba people, or coming from the fact that these were all people who were also Muslim? And the answer I always have is yes, both. There, was it was the room telling me that I was supposed to be on this side of the mat as opposed to the other side of the mat when we were praying because we are Muslim? For sure. Were they also telling me that, I get served food after all of the boys in the room because of my ethnicity or my religion? I'm not so sure. It felt like both. I would say things that felt like inherently Yoruba in that space were things that can be boiled down to like how you greeted other people, how you greeted people who were older than you, how you were, the expectations that you were having in that space, much like any other, kind of social religious space, is like you're expected to be in a position of care, in a position of looking out for the needs of others, anticipating the needs of others. And I would say that came a lot in the religion, but it was also reinforced by the culture and ethnicity practices. So while I have been kind of deprogramming the socialization that I received from my religious upbringing, and I decided to kind of start to really investigate my relationship to Islam and to all Abrahamic faiths and organized religions, starting in 2013 when I was entering the summer before my junior year of college. And it actually ended up happening because I wanted to go deeper into the religion. I was seriously considering like wearing hijab on campus. I was considering like what it meant to be celibate. I was considering what it meant to, not drink and not smoke and not explore any parts of my sexuality and just assume and kind of reinforce my heterosexuality at the time. And I remember picking up I think I like downloaded an app on my phone at the time to be able to read the Quran because I wanted to read it cover to cover. If this is a book that I'm going to be kind of using to map out my whole life, I better have an understanding of that book. And I started reading it. I started reading it and immediately was like, what the hell is this? Pause. I'm already suspicious. And some of the language actually that really caught me was a lot of the language about like how husbands should treat their wives. And like the book was written from the perspective of men who would be reading this book in order to know how to treat their wives and their children. And I was like immediately horrified by the language, the abusive, controlling, manipulative language that was embedded in what was supposed to be a holy text, telling people how to be better human beings on the planet that we share, you know, with so many others, so many others. And I was just like, this is not it. That is not it. So I remember because I started it like I think Ramadan at that time was early in the summer because Ramadan is lunar, so it changes every Gregorian year. Um, and so I remember I was like, I'm going to start reading this during the month of Ramadan because that's when a lot of people kind of re-engage with the text to kind of re-solidify their relationship to it. And after I put the book down, aka closed the app on my phone and deleted it, I was like, okay, I need to do an experiment with myself. I need to I need to give myself the permission to experiment this summer under the phrase, what if I didn't believe in God? What would happen? What would happen if I literally just decided this summer, summer 2013, I, Temidayo, do not believe in God? What would happen? Just what would happen? What would I do differently than what I'm already doing right now? And being the person that I am, I was like, all right, let's do it. And I remember deleting the app, deciding not to put on hijab, and then deciding I'm not going to fast for the month of Ramadan this year. I am not going to pray 5 times a day this year. I am going to allow myself to drink and to smoke and to kiss girls and to do whatever it is that I felt like I wanted to do because I didn't have this religious hegemony telling me, like, you cannot do these things, right? I freed myself of that bubble for the summer. And I was like, and who would I be? And what would I get into? When I tell you that was the beginning of everything for me, like I cannot overstate how liberating it was to allow myself to exist exactly as I desired for the first time in my life. Changed everything for me. And I think I'm going to have to do a part two of this because it's going to get so long. And I'll tell you about what happened in that experiment and then also what I took away once I decided to end the experiment. And we'll talk about that in the next coming videos. I'm so excited to talk about this with you all, with my millions and billions of followers and fans and friends. Thank you all for tuning in today. I will see you tomorrow. I love you. Bye.